Hi, I'm Dave from boyinaband.com, and welcome to day 3 of the 7-day song on Bassline. Yesterday in day 2, I taught you how to make a sweet bass synth and a simple sub-bass synth. Today in day 3, we'll be making 2 more bass synths to add to our collection, a wah bass and a wobble bass. Okay, let's begin with the wah bass and save the dubsteppy wobble for part 2. This one is kind of similar to the wah bass with a few settings changed. So, right-click and create a combinator, and name it wah bass. Inside it, make a Thor instance, initialize it, and open it up. And before I go any further, I forgot in the last tutorials to save for the wah bass. Up here in the keyboard mode section, it says polyphonic, mono retrig, or mono legato. Set it to mono legato, and that means that the synth can only play one note at a time, meaning it'll be much tighter. So back to this tutorial. I'm just going to make a new section for our first verse with the same beat as before. So if I copy that across, let's get rid of the extended section there. If I copy that across for the new section and drag the L and R markers, and I'll just add in some notes to work with. Okay, so I've just put the notes in there, and I'll explain a bit about my note choice later. Make sure you've got an analog oscillator on the sine wave setting for the bassy tone. This is 1 octave above the sub-bass, and we're not using the 2 synths simultaneously very much, so it shouldn't interfere with it and make the mix muddy. Next, make a multi-oscillator on the sawtooth setting, detuned a bit, it's about 40 maybe, 44, I've got 41 rather, and on the interval detune mode, which is a bit cleaner sounding than the random modes, which makes it better for basses, which need to be as clean as possible in order to avoid being too muddy. If you haven't already, you'll come to realise that the dirtiness of most really dirty basses is derived from what the producer has done to the mid to top end of the bass synth, rather than the bass end, which is kind of ironic. Send it through with the 2 button, and this oscillator will provide a gritty filling tone to the bass. Lastly, hit the 3 button and select an FM pair oscillator, with the carrier at 1 and the mod at 2, and turn the FM knob to about 5/8 the way around, so about maybe 80, 85, something like that. Okay, so let's take a listen to what we've got at the moment. Okay, that's pretty cool, but that FM pair oscillator is a bit too loud at the moment, so let's take it down by about 12 decibels, something like that. Now for the filter. Turn the frequency down to about 100 Hz. To cut off that high end initially, and turn the ENV value to full, so the filter envelope has full control over this filter. Down in the filter envelope, this is where we want things to change considerably from the wah bass. We're going to change everything, so I'm going to press play and change some of these settings, and you'll be able to hear what it's doing to the sound. Change the attack to 180 milliseconds, just so it takes a while to build, giving that initial wah, but then take the decay down to about 700 milliseconds. Yeah, that's close enough. And then sustain to 0 and release to 0. That decay being so low means that it doesn't last very long, and the sustain and release being at 0 means there's nothing after the end of the sound. It's just a sharp cut-off after it's gone wow. To anyone who's also into their dubstep, this is a good way to achieve this wah technique without modulating an LFO, meaning you can, without using automation, make a synth just make the wah sound once instead of constantly. Useful, huh? Turn the amp sustain up to full, so it doesn't lose any volume over time, and then the release up just a little bit to about 60, 50, something like that, just so it doesn't clip at the end of the sound, but it still stops very quickly. Lastly, we're going to add a BV512 vocoder to change the sound. So right-click, create BV512 digital vocoder. Make sure it's on equalizer mode and on 8-band. Okay, so I'll play you the sound and show you how I'm going to change it. I'm going to cut bands 2 and 4 a little bit. Boost band 6. Just to bring up that one part of the high end there. And fully boost 7 and 8, so it's really to really bring up that harmonic overtone and make the synth sound kind of hollow. Also, have a play with the shift knob again to make it higher or lower. I'm going to make it a little bit bassier, a couple of notches down, minus 28 there. That's a pretty cool bass right there. So let's have a look at those notes. These notes then, nice and simple. We've just got a semitone gap going on between D and E flat for most of the notes, and then going up a tone, the key, to F at the end to give it a bit more melody, but not too much. So we've got D, E flat D, E flat D, E flat F, 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 E flat D. It's actually a key change from the chorus, which is in C, meaning when it drops back into the chorus, it has a pleasant resolving sound as the note goes down to the C that it feels like it should hit. That makes it that bit more interesting. Okay, I'll show you that key change now. See that kind of resolved feel? Okay, I've kept a decent gap between the notes, as you can see here, in 3 of the bars, so there can be a cool kind of call and response with the next bass synth that you might not even know is a bass synth if you were a casual listener. So join me for part 2, where I'll be teaching you how to make the wobble bass synth.